story. In our story, it says there's going to be a great war in the north. And this war is going to be fought not with weapons, but words and paper. This war, when it is happening, a voice from the north is going to rise. And when that voice from the north rises, it's a warning to all humankind that it's time to change what we're doing as humanity to this earth. Otherwise, it's not giving up the end. And I told that story, and then I left and I went to rest. And the next day, all these spiritual leaders, I don't know what we're talking about. They said they knew I was coming. And they knew what I was talking about, and that it's time. And that issue, our refuge, became one of the priority issues of the sacred sites conversations. And that was very powerful, that we all have that same story and that same belief. And people from all over have that story. But I'm thinking about listening to and listening to Bai talk about persistent organic pollutants. It also made me think about the work that is being done at the international level for a global mercury treaty. There's actually work being done by Indigenous people and people around the world to ban mercury. And I worked on that issue with my father's people, the Pit River and Windfield. We want to have mercury, which is left in the tailings from the gold rush. In all of our waterways in Northern California, there's massive mercury contamination from gold mining. And the companies won't clean it up. And that was an end to my people in Northern California's right to their subsistence food, fish. We were a fishing people. We cannot eat our fish. If you go to a lake, you will see a sign that states that it's unsafe to eat the fish in that water because of mercury. And when you think about mercury contamination, the effect to women is highest. And if women ingest mercury-contaminated foods, fish, tuna, when they're pregnant, it can accumulate in their body and affect their unborn. And that effect, one of them that's really, really concerning and should be to everyone, especially women, is the effect on the intellect. It affects the intellect and the development of our unborn. And that makes me think about what's happening here in Alaska with all the proposed mining. The proposed mining that's happening right now, we're going to be left with that issue. And so we have to be concerned about that. I wanted to talk a little bit about also the existing institutional structures that contribute to economic and environmental violence. On the issues of resource extraction, the governments are usually in partnership and alliance with the company that is seeking to develop the resources on our lands. When an oil or gas company enters a territory, one of the first steps to development of natural resources is to determine land claims, which facilitates the ability of the company to obtain a clear path to the resources. The United States Congress unilaterally passed the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, known as ANCSA, in 1971 to legitimize U.S. ownership and governance over Indigenous peoples, our lands, and access to our resources. Under ANCSA, for-profit corporations were established, and they partner with the companies in our territories now. The sole purpose of a corporation is profit at all costs. A corporation does not look out for the health and well-being of the people, whereas the tribe's purpose is the health and well-being of the people. Two contradictory purposes were now put in place. Many put forth to eliminate Aboriginal title to our ancestral territories, to access and exploit our resources, to assimilate Alaska Natives and incorporate us into Western society and value systems, but ultimately to divide and conquer Alaska Natives. This is the same tactic that the U.S. implements when dealing with Indigenous peoples throughout the world. Our ancestral homelands now, today, are compromised by exploitation and polluted beyond reparation in some cases. So, for Indigenous peoples, we know and we feel that our rights are intrinsically interconnected with our environment due to the intimate connection we have to our lands in relation to our physical nourishment, our health, our cultural practices, our spirituality, and especially our social systems. The reality is our land and ecosystem left intact is the greatest assurance that our rights are, as Indigenous peoples, remain. Therefore, when we talk of ensuring Indigenous rights in the terms of development, it's a contradiction. Alaska Natives live a subsistence lifestyle. That's reality throughout the state. Every day we live from the land, hunt, fish, gather. Everything we are as a people comes from our homelands. And so when we talk about subsistence, what we're really talking about is our way of life. And that's been passed on from millennia. And that way of life is entirely dependent on how the environment. So these systems that are put in place, such as ASA, are some of the systems that we have to correct in our lifetime to solve some of the problems facing our territories. And I hope to see it in my lifetime. And there is a lot of talk now by Indigenous people. I just came from the Tribal Leaders Summit, and they're actually starting to finally get to support issues. So I'm excited. I'm hoping that we get where we need to be. But just to give you an idea of what's happening in the state, first this is abstract. We've heard from a couple already, but right now Shell Oil is actually drilling and prepping for next year's development in the Beaufort Sea and the Chukchi Sea. So they're actually out there operating. And that's a threat to the Inuit people and their subsistence whaling way of life. Cook Inlet, the same thing. Offshore development is happening, and then all of the other development that's already happened, accumulating there, affecting all of the subsistence resources. Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, still under threat all the time. And another place under threat is the Yukon Flats Wildlife Refuge. That's in my people's territory too, so we're getting it from our backyard and our front yard. Bishop Lake, the National Petroleum Reserve of Alaska, that's a place that's a subsistence use area. People there want to protect. That's under threat. And then we have a diamond mine, Pebble Mine. We have King Coal coming into territory, Lisa's territory. Wishbone Hill, Chewitna Mine, the Western Arctic, there's a lot of coal there. They're going to have to deal with offshore development, coal development in their backyard. They already have a Red Mine operating. How are they going to survive this environmental violence that's being pushed in our territories? So when I think about environmental violence, it's happening here in Alaska. And the harm from the contamination